Hello, everyone. It's Will, and I'm here with another tarot reading. Today, we're going to ask the question, what's going on with your ex? What is up with them right now? I've chosen 3 decks. We've got the Trinity Tarot. This is what we're going to be using for the main reading, okay? I've got the Citadel Oracle. We're going to use this to describe your ex. And then we've got the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle over here on my left, and we're going to use that to give you a focus message. Let me set these aside now that I've got some smoke on these cards. We're going to start with the Citadel Oracle and pull 3 cards to describe your ex. I'll do this 3 times, and that will help you determine which reading is for you. So I've shuffled these, but let me give them a little bit more of a shuffle. And we'll lay out 3 cards. The first card is how your ex sees themselves. The second card is what they don't see about themselves. And the third card is how others see them. Ooh, these jumped, so we're going to use these. This is furthest to the left, so I'm putting it on the left. This is the middle. What is the third card? Okay. This will be our third card. So they see themselves as a king, right? This reading is for you. Reading 1 is for you. Group 1 is for you. If you think your ex sees themselves like a king who's in control, but who maybe because they've kind of had everything handed to them, doesn't necessarily know how to do anything. And maybe knows that about themselves. What they don't know about themselves is the fate that they need to accept help and that they need guidance. They don't get that. It's true, but it's hidden from them. They are not able to see that. And how do others see them? Others see them as the sentinel, like a guard, someone who's very determined and very certain of themselves, but also very guarded, right? Amor fati is love of fate, I believe, which is interesting given that it's next to the fate card here. So maybe someone who feels like it's their fate to be so determined, so certain, and to be very guarded. So let's pair this with Tourmaline. I think that fits. So Tourmaline and the king, the fate, the sentinel, if that describes your ex, then you are group 1. The timestamps are below, and I will see you in your reading. If, however, you are still here, it's because you want to see if another pile describes your ex more accurately. So let's pull some more cards, shall we? This time, let's go flower agate. This will be flower agate. And 3 cards to describe your ex. So what do they think of themselves? They see themselves as this. They don't see that. And others see them this way. They think of themselves like the sailor, someone who wants to travel a lot, maybe who has a romanticized view of traveling, someone who is interested in experiencing new things, new influences, maybe also someone who's a little bit like goes with the flow, right? What they don't see is that they are the herald. They have regrets about the past, right? They're the sort of person who longs for, wishes for, thinks about how things used to be. Maybe they're kind of nostalgic, but they don't recognize that quality in themselves, right? They don't see how much the past and small losses or mistakes or regrets are influencing them now. And other people see them like the archer, someone who does a lot of waiting for the right moment to act, right? Someone who plans ahead and bides their time, right? Like you can imagine an archer who's holding the shot, holding the shot, holding the shot, waiting for the perfect time to shoot the arrow. The disadvantage here could be waiting too long, right? To act. So if this describes your ex, then you're in group 2, right? With the flower agate, timestamps below, and I'll see you in your reading. And if you are still here, then let's get a third option for you. Let's do Ocean Jasper. And we'll pull 3 more cards for your ex. All right. How they see themselves, what they don't see, how others see them. They see themselves, as the miser. They know that they can be very stubborn, inflexible, that they are maybe kind of greedy or envious. They hold on to things. They are not as generous as they should be. And this is a quality that they are to some extent aware of in themselves. What they don't see is that they are pathless as well. Ooh. They have difficult decisions to make. They don't have a path in life. They're lacking direction. They don't know where they're going. And others see them as a musician, metaphorically or literally, someone who is inspired, creative, who is grateful to be doing whatever they are doing with their life in the moment, but who maybe doesn't know where the future is going to take them, right? So if this describes your ex, then you are group 3, and the timestamps are below. I will see you in your reading. Feel free to rewind if you want to figure out which of these best describes your ex, and I'll see you there. Bye, everyone. Hello, group 1, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Tourmaline, and 3 cards to describe your ex are the King, the Fate, and the Sentinel. They see themselves as a king who's in control, but when you're on top, the only place to go is to fall down. They don't see that they need to accept help, that they need guidance, and others see them as someone very guarded, determined, and certain of themselves, despite the fact that really they should be asking others for some help. Let me prop these up over here to look down at the reading, and then I'm going to pull some cards from the Trinity Tarot, which I have shuffled. And we'll do a 9-card portrait reading to answer the question, what's going on with this person, with your ex? What is going on with them? We'll lay out 9 cards, and we'll read the center card, and then the corners, and then the columns, and then the rows. And finally, we'll end by pulling a focus card for you from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle. Ooh, we have a jumper. So I think that will be our first card in the top left corner. I don't know what it is. I didn't see it. But that will be card number 1. All right. And then these we will cut. These will form the rest of the spread. We'll flip them over one by one, to get a general picture of what's going on here, and then we'll read in specific combinations to answer the question, what's going on with your ex? Okay, what was this jumper that was so eager for us to see? Ace of Cups, new relationship, new feelings, potential for new emotions. All right. Crown of Pentacles, aka King of Pentacles. I suspect that that is your ex because, of course, we had King as the first card up from the Citadel Oracle. Nine of Swords, anxiety, sleepless nights, regrets. Judgment. Well, this can, of course, mean being judged. It can mean like other people judging you, right? Or even legal or court cases. It can also mean being reawakened, being reborn. It can also just mean popularity, being with lots of people. Whoa, we've got death in the center, the end of something. Probably the end of your relationship with this person. Six Pentacles, generosity, the ability to be generous, but also weighing out how much of your resources you're going to give from one person to the next, how much of yourself you're going to give to different people. The Chariot, maybe something to do with a car. Or if it's more metaphorical, we've got progress forward, moving forward, trying to maintain control, but maybe having trouble finding direction. The Defender, this is the Emperor in other decks, someone in control, power, someone who can command others, someone also who maybe is too controlling, even tyrannical, who doesn't listen to other people. And then 10 Pentacles. This can mean money. This can mean, 10 Pentacles can mean legacy, inheritance, passing something on to the future. All right, let's start with the center card for this spread because everything else revolves around it. And of course, we've got death here as the center card for our reading. So there's a loss, there's an end, there's a transition, there's a transformation that has happened to your ex. And that is, everything else is revolving around this loss. If it's recent, that's not surprising. If it's not recent, then you should know that they are still very much thinking of the relationship and of you. You are still very much on their mind. And they are probably trying to figure out how they can move on from it, what they can do next, how they can cope with this feeling of loss. With this card, we always think that life will never be the same after it, right? Something is changing, and it's changing in such a way that things will never quite be the same again. So that's what we've got at the middle of the spread. We're going to look at the corners now. We'll start with the top left and then move clockwise. And this gives us context for what's going on and maybe a theme. So Ace of Cups, this would be new emotional potential, like someone who wants to have a relationship again. We see the little heart symbol there on the sleeve or the cuff of the hand, indicating, and I guess also there's a ring on the finger, right? So maybe there's a feeling here of like wanting to get back together, wanting to start something new, emotional potential. It can also refer to just the home, in some contexts, but something to do with like where you're safe, where you're comfortable, where you feel like everything's going to be okay and fulfilled. But we contrast that with what we have in the top right corner, of course, which is 9 swords. So on the one hand, all of this feeling, emotion, potential, and on the other hand, great anxiety, often trouble sleeping, regrets, being woken up at night by dreams about what may have been, what could have happened, what you did, what that person did, all of that. So those cards are awfully different from one another, right? Lower right-hand corner, we've got 10 of Pentacles. So there's a sense of like, what am I leaving behind in my life? What am I doing? What is your ex doing that people are going to look back and say, look at this wonderful legacy they have, right? Look at what they did. Look at what they left behind. Look at what we have inherited from your ex, right? There's a lot of that kind of thinking, like, what's going to be here when I'm gone, right? How can I act? How can I behave in such a way now or in the past so that in the future people will say, this person was important. This person was a good person, right? And then we've got the Chariot over here to finish the corners of the square. The Chariot is about making progress, taking action, moving forward, doing stuff. Sometimes it can involve being a little reckless or like not having total control of the reins of the situation, going off course, maybe even going the wrong direction, going sideways rather than forward. That sometimes can be what this card indicates. So the theme here is one, I think, of opposites, contradictions, I guess is a way we might put it. At the center of it all, there's been a big loss, and there's a feeling like maybe of wanting to reconcile, right? Of wanting to have the potential to be fulfilled in life, but that is totally contradicted by regrets and anxiety, and that coming out in feelings of like mental or emotional pain, right? And often solitariness because of being alone, right? And thinking about, what are other people going to think of me later in the future, right? What legacy do I leave behind? And where am I going with the Chariot? Like, am I going in the right direction? It maybe doesn't feel like they're going in the right direction. All right, so there we've got some context. There's enough to grab onto now, and we can read the columns and rows. So we'll start with the columns. Left is going to be past, middle is present, and then right will be the future. So what happened in the past? Ace of Cups, Judgment, and the Chariot. So in the past, there was a relationship, Ace of Cups. It had a lot of potential. There was a chance for it to grow, to turn into something big. But there was a judgment of some kind. With judgment, we can think of the final judgment, the last judgment, like where you have to account for yourself. Someone says, you did this, this, and this. How can you explain that, right? And so we have that kind of situation, like maybe the ex did something they shouldn't have, and was asked to account for it. Why did you do this? Why did you behave in the way that you did behave? Because, of course, it's led to a loss, the end of the relationship. And down here, we've got the Chariot. And so I'm thinking that maybe it involved travel, right, in a car or some other kind of vehicle. Like, did they move away, or did they travel somewhere? Or did they do something while they were traveling? If it's more metaphorical, it could just be that they sort of took some action moving in the wrong direction, right? It could have to do with a kind of emotional, what's the word here? Action, I guess I'd say, like doing something that has to do with another relationship, for example. And I say that because we associate the chariot with the astrological sign of Cancer, which is the crab, which is related to home and relationships and protection too, right? And so I also think of the way that Cancer as a crab um, moves laterally, right? They don't walk forward and backward, they move side to side. And so I sometimes think with this card, did the person who did whatever the chariot thing was, did it involve moving side to side instead of forward, right? So in the past, we have some trouble that happened involving movement and or movement or progress and having to be judged for it, right? Having to be accountable for one's actions. In the present, we've got the Crown of Pentacles representing your ex, someone who seems to have it all put together, at least on the surface materially, someone who like is employed or has money, whatever that might be, seems to have time, seems to have energy, but can also be lazy. You can imagine a king with lots of resources might not do a whole lot, right? They might just sort of sit on their throne and rest on their laurels, right? They can also be overly sensual or indulgent, right? In addition to being lazy, eating too much, drinking too much, not having any fire under them, not getting up and doing stuff, not talking to people, not engaging with people, all of that can sometimes come with Crown of Pentacles. And in the current moment, of course, with death, there is a kind of void and emptiness and end that they are having to look at and face. And so I suspect that they might be leaning on some more of those shadow side behaviors with Crown of Pentacles rather than some of the other good ones that are still potentially there, like, being very generous with one's resources, giving to others, enjoying what they have, right? And instead, there might be more of sort of a sensual indulgence in what they have that holds them back rather than moving them forward. And then down here we've got the Defender. And so we would think here of someone who likes to be in control, as of course the Crown of Pentacles would too. But the difference here in how I would read these cards is that the Death card and the Defender card, right? These are from the Major Arcana, and so these are cards that explain why something is happening, and this card is explaining more like what it's happening, who it's happening to, and what they're doing, right? And so why are they behaving in the current moment in this sensually indulgent, maybe kind of lazy way, if indeed that's what's happening? Well, it's because of the loss of the relationship, death, and because there's someone who really feels like they need to be in control and in charge, and like they need attention, right? And we think of the Defender. This would be the Emperor in many other decks, and we would associate it with Aries, right? The ram. We can see the horns here, right? And so someone who's fiery, right? And maybe needs more attention than they're getting, and that's maybe upsetting them. In the future, on the right, we've got Nine of Swords. What's coming to them? Just more anxiety, sleepless nights, which means they're going to be tired the next day. Regrets, thinking back and wondering if they could have done things differently, thinking about conflicts with others, emotional and mental anguish. Not good coming up. Six of Pentacles would be generosity. And so we do have quite a number of pentacles in the spread with the crown 6 and 10. And so there is, I think, a lot to do here with like resources, time, money, investing in others, or in activities or whatever it might be. And with the 6, we would think about someone who's like, okay, it is time to give of myself to others, whatever that might mean. But with the scales here, we would also think of someone who's weighing, like, how much should I give? Is this the right amount? Could I give a little bit less? I think of someone here who maybe like doesn't tip quite enough after a night out. Someone who gives kind of selectively to others. It could also be, if we reverse the idea of the card a little bit with the 6 of Pentacles, it could be that they're asking someone else to be generous and to give to them. If like asking somebody else to give them some resource that would improve their well-being, like give me attention, give me a time, give me some of your energy, that kind of stuff, could also come through with a 6 of Pentacles. And with the 10 of Pentacles, here we would think about having plenty of material resources, but also thinking like, what am I leaving for other people? Right. So in the future, I think, especially with 9 of Swords signifying regret, thinking like, am I giving to others in a way that people are going to look back and think about me in positive ways, in ways that I want them to think about me? Right. Or am I regretting how I've acted and maybe thinking it's time to make a change and I need to be doing something different here? Let's read the rows now, and the top row is what they're thinking, the middle row is what they're doing or what's staring them in the face, and the bottom row is what's sort of motivating the situation that they are not totally aware of, what's sort of driving it. It's the foundation of the situation. And so at the top, what they're thinking about is the relationship. Ace of Cups, they're thinking about how much potential it had and how whatever they have done has turned it into something painful. Right? We go from 1 cup to 9 swords, and who's in the middle of that? They are in the middle of that. The Crown of Pentacles, the King, is in the middle of that. They turned one beautiful cup with lots of potential into a bunch of painful swords, and it's in the top row, so they are aware of that. To some extent, this is on their mind, and they are thinking about it. What are they doing? What's staring them in the face? What are they engaging in? That judgment from the past, this could also be gathering with other people and thinking about, how could I reawaken? How could I be reborn in some way? How could I be a different person? How could I act differently? Like, I'm thinking about a group therapy session or just talking to one's friends and saying, hey, I really blew it, didn't I? What do you think would change things for me in the future? How could I be a new person in the future? Because right now they're feeling this great loss, death, and they're wondering, maybe, is there a way to turn this loss into a transformation, right? Can this change be a change for the better instead of a change for the worse? And maybe they're considering giving something of themselves, right? Reaching out and giving. I'm thinking here of the way that with the Citadel Oracle, the middle card was fate, accepting help, needing guidance, right? And so I wonder here if, on the one hand, they're thinking of reaching out and giving something of themselves to you or somebody else, but also maybe of asking someone else to be generous in giving them help, right? And maybe it's both of those, right? Like, maybe they're realizing that they weren't being generous with themselves, with their time, with their energy, maybe with money. And so Six of Pentacles would be maybe them reaching out and saying, like, wanting to take accountability for that, because they feel judged for it, right? And they want to rise up and make a change. But what do they not see? What are they not seeing? I think maybe they're not seeing how they didn't have as much control over the situation as they wanted. Chariot would mean making progress going forward, but not always having the reins as firmly in one's hands as one would hope. And the Defender is someone who really wants pretty close to absolute control, to the point of even being over-controlling and tyrannical in some situations. And so I would think here that they're not aware of how much they wanted to be in control and of how little control they actually had, right? And this is causing them to reevaluate their legacy, what they're going to pass on about themselves, how others are going to think about them in the future. All right, I am satisfied with that reading. It sounds like your ex has a lot going on right now. They are struggling to figure out what went wrong and how they could atone for it. And they may be considering doing something, like reaching out about it, being generous, and saying, like, maybe an apology, like generous with words, it could be, so that they can have a better, like, get rid of this anxiety and have a better feeling that, like, other people will look back at me and will say I did the right thing, right? So now let's think about you for a second. I've got the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle here. Let's give this a shuffle and pull a card for you. This is your focus message. This is what you should be thinking about, working on, doing immediately after finishing this reading. What is important for you to hear right now in your life? Let's pull just one little card from this deck. Death is just one character I play. My real name is Change. So if you're feeling like it's all ended, right? Death, remember that's just one facet of what's happening. Every end is a new beginning. It's just a change. Don't get too stuck on the ending part. Remember, it's change instead. That is your focus message for the day. Let me know what you thought of the reading, if it resonated, what you feel, what you think about it. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to help me grow the channel. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Have a great day. Hello, Group 2, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Flower Agate here, and we've paired that with 3 cards from the Citadel Oracle to describe your ex. We've got the Sailor, the Herald, and the Archer. So they see themselves as someone who likes to travel with wanderlust, seek out new experiences, have new influences, do things probably very exciting, exploring, that kind of stuff. But underneath it, they're the Herald. They've got regrets about the past. They've got longing. They're thinking about what used to be, what could have been, but they're not aware of how much that is influencing them. And others see them as the Archer, someone who waits, bides their time, who plans, maybe doesn't always know exactly when to take action, and maybe waits a little too much before taking action. We're going to ask these cards from the Trinity Tarot, what's going on with your ex at the moment? We'll lay out 9 cards to answer that question, and we'll give them a read and see what we get. Once we've done that, we will pull a card from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle as a focus card for you, something for you to keep in mind as you go about the rest of your day. So 9 cards from the Trinity Tarot laid out in a box. What is going on with your ex? That's our question. We'll start with this. Well, first we'll flip over all the cards. Look at what we've got. Then we'll start with the center card, read it. Then we'll do the corners, then the columns, and then the rows. All right. So what do we have here? 8 swords. Feeling stuck. Defensive, trying to figure out how to move on, but being in your head. Your ex is in their head, probably. 7 wands, struggling, feeling like the world is up against them. 4 swords, needing a rest, withdrawing, not engaging with others, taking a break. 10 of wands, burdened, burning out, carrying too much. 7 of cups is at the center. Choices, confusion, not seeing things for what they really are. 3 of wands, taking action and waiting to see what comes. There, the archer is resonating quite a lot. This biding your time, planning ahead, and then like doing something and then waiting to see what happens. That's very 3 of wands. The magician. Someone who is manifesting but might be manipulating, tricking, creating illusions in order to get their way. Whenever the magician comes up, I always think, who is tricking whom here? Ace of wands. A new task, a new fire. A new spark of passion. 5 of wands, the passion grows. Competition, fighting, unnecessary conflict. Unnecessary conflict, disruption, change. Okay. A lot of wands. In fact, it's all wands and swords, except for the magician, who has a wand and a sword, and the cups here in the middle. That is very curious, because wands and swords are the active suits. They're what we build with and what we fight with, right? And pentacles and cups, those are the receptive suits. They're what make us happy and what ground us. And so, without even reading the individual cards, there's a pretty clear message here that at the center of everything, your ex is trying to be fulfilled, right? But what's traveling all around that is just action, work, fighting, conflict, right? That's what's happening. We're not seeing a lot of cups. We're not seeing any pentacles whatsoever, so there's maybe not any grounding going on. A lot of frenetic energy, headed out in lots of directions. Maybe it's not as focused as it could be. Maybe it's not grounded. That's the general sense that I get from the very beginning. So then let's start with the 7 of Cups in the middle of the spread and think about it, because it kind of sets the tone for the whole reading. And we've got, of course, very much steeped in the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery of the tarot, 7 cups with different objects in each one, suggesting lots of options or choices ahead, but being frozen in choice, being totally uncertain about which choice to make. Maybe none of the choices look good. It seems like you could do this or that or the other. You could roll some dice or put on a mask or visit a snake or whatever it might be. But do you really want to do any of those things? And this card often suggests no, right? That it can end up being a kind of rejection of all of the possibilities in front of oneself. There's also a sense here with this card of maybe living in a fantasy or having a cloud, a fantasy in front of one so that you can't see what's real. And instead of engaging with or taking action or behaving in accordance with what is really happening, there's all of these illusory options that actually aren't all good options. With sevens, we think of challenges, we think of obstacles, and with cups, we think of relationships and feelings and emotions. And so we have a struggle or an obstacle with feelings here at the center of the entire spread. So that's going to set the tone for the reading. Next, we'll read the corners, starting with the Eight of Swords in the top left, and then we'll work clockwise to the other corners. And this gives us context and a theme for the reading. And so with the Eight of Swords, we have defensiveness, right? Imagine that your ex is this candle sitting in the middle of the spread, trying to shine some light in the darkness, perhaps, but surrounding themselves with all of these sharp swords. Why? To keep people away, to isolate, to keep other people from them. And if people try to get close, well, they're going to get hurt, aren't they? Because they're going to get cut with one of these swords. This is all in their mind, though. With swords, we think of the mind. And so with eights, we often think of movement, but with swords, we think of an inability to move, right? It sort of gets turned into its opposite when it's with the suit of swords, or at least it is with the way that I read them. So someone here who is probably isolating, and that's also corroborated by the Four of Swords, which we'll read next, but someone who is all up in their head about something that has happened and feels defensive about it. Maybe because they know they did something wrong. I suspect that's a possibility here. Maybe they know that they've hurt someone and they are expecting to be hurt in kind. And so they're putting up a defense against that. That is a possibility. When we move to the Four of Swords, in the top right corner, we get again this idea of isolation, being alone. With this, it would be a little bit more of a sense of not so much isolating because of one feeling defensive, but isolating for rest because of exhaustion, because of being heartbroken. We could think of the Three of Swords, which comes immediately before the Four. Why does one need to rest? Well, because they're heartbroken, the Three of Swords, right? So there's a sense of withdrawing from other people and from society and the world, first because of defensiveness, but then later because of heartbreak or heartache, right? Which brings us down to the Five of Wands, suggesting at the best possibility here, the nicest would be competition, a friendly game that involves competition. Like sports or something where people have agreed to a set of rules and they're playing by the rules, and one person will win and one will lose, but hopefully everybody has a good time. But the more negative end of this card, Five of Wands, is that someone stops playing by the rules and, a fight kind of breaks out, and it's no longer a friendly competition. It's people who have decided to cause conflict with one another in a potentially unnecessary way that doesn't build anything, that doesn't go anywhere, but just maybe lets out emotions of frustration. So this person could be engaging in this kind of unnecessary conflict with you or with other people around them. It's interesting to see then that with the Eight of Swords and the Four of Swords, it's about being alone, isolating, right? But as soon as we see a card that involves multiple people, you can imagine one person holding on to each of these wands. Their interactions with other people involve conflict, right? There's friction happening when they are with other people, which maybe is why they're not being around other people if they don't have to be. They're withdrawing instead because when they're with others, fights happen, conflict happens, annoyances come out, all of that kind of stuff. Which brings us to the Magician, which the nicest interpretation of that would be someone who's trying to manifest their power into being in the world in order to do something, right? And so that's probably to some extent at play here, because I guess we're all kind of doing that all the time. Most of the time anyways. But the Magician is a trickster too, right? And so the Magician, think of them like a street performer who will trick you, right? And you might think it's fun for a little while, but it might get pretty annoying if it continues for too long. And so the Magician is someone who does sort of magic, but the kind of magic that puts up an illusion, pulls a rabbit out of a hat, that kind of thing, where it's not real. But it is trying to trick you in some way. And so I suspect that maybe this person wasn't 100% honest with you. Either they lied or they withheld something, and that has played a big role in why they're feeling defensive and they're withdrawing and running into conflicts with other people, right? So I think the most important card here actually so far of the corners is that Magician card, because it does indicate, dishonesty. Shall we put it that way? Yeah. All right, let's read the columns now. So we'll start on the left with the past, middle is present, and right will be future. So in the past, what happened? This is where the Magician shows up. And so when I read the tarot, I think of the major arcana as indicating why something happened, and the minor arcana is indicating what actually happened. And so what actually happened was your ex putting themselves in a situation where they had to feel defensive, where they felt like they had to defend themselves and isolate themselves, and they're all in their head about it, and burning out with the Ten of Wands, feeling a terrible burden of having to carry too much. And here I really do think of lying, because lies are like burdens, right? We feel like the longer we have to carry them, and the deeper we dig the hole that we're in, the harder it is to do. And so if you can imagine your ex carrying this basket filled with all of these wands, 10 is the most wands that you could have on any one card of the tarot. And they couldn't have any more. So it seems excessive. It seems like too much, like they couldn't carry it any longer. And I say lies again, or deception of some kind, because of the Magician card that's down here. So, maybe they felt defensive about the deception, and it seemed like it was too much to carry. So what's happening now? Seven of Wands, they're struggling. They feel like other people are against them, like everybody's against them, which very much resonates with the Five of Wands down here. If you can imagine your ex holding this one wand and then a whole bunch of different people holding these six coming at them, right? And your ex is trying to keep the high ground and stay on top of everything, and like maybe beat down all of the accusations that are coming at them online or whatever. I think that because this is fire, and so I think digital, right? Electricity and all of that. And feeling like kind of attacked, right? Struggling. And so then trying to consider what their options might be. Feeling attacked, the Seven Wands turn into Seven Cups. Well, how could I turn all of these wands that are being thrown in my face. How could I turn them into cups that would fulfill me? And probably not finding a way out, right? Coming up with a bunch of possibilities that aren't actually going to solve any of the problems that your ex themselves has created. That's how I would read this. And so what's coming along now with this Ace of Wands? The Ace of Wands is a spark. Wands are fire, and an ace is the smallest unit. And so what's the smallest unit of fire? That's a spark. So we have a spark of passion, a spark of inspiration happening here. And I can't help but connect that to the 10 wands over here in the left column. So this is suggesting burning out, right? But this is suggesting the fire's coming back again. And so I wonder if in the current moment, your ex is wondering like, wait, do I feel something for this person again? Is the fire not burnt out? Is the fire starting up again? And there's maybe some potential there for it to grow. That is what I see happening in the present. Moving on towards the last column on the right with the future, we've got the Four of Swords, so trying to steady one's mind, trying to be stable-minded by resting and withdrawing, right? And waiting with Three of Wands, trying to figure out, is this the time to act or not? Again, I go back to this Archer card, biding one's time. And so I think your ex is trying to figure out what to do. That's very much the sense that I get here. They're like, should I contact them? Should I follow them? Should I message them? Should I call them? What should I be doing? And they're sort of waiting to see if the right time will come to do something. Meanwhile, they're in Five of Wands territory. So in addition to this representing conflicts with other people, we could think of the way that the fire sort of burned out, except it didn't. There was a spark. And then it's increasing, 7, 3, 5. So it's like coming back again. We've got wands all over the place here. They're not just in the past, they're in the present and the future as well. So like the fire is not burned out. It's very clearly what this is saying. And with the Five of Wands, we would think here of like disruption of one's passions, right? The idea that something is being overcome, like you can't resist it anymore. And it's getting to the point where your ex is just going to have to do something, going to have to act on it, because it's going to keep pressing and pressing and pressing until they do something about it. Let's read the rows now. We'll start with the top row. That's what they're thinking. Middle is what they're doing. And the bottom is what they don't know, what is affecting them, but that they're not totally aware of how it's affecting them. So what are they thinking? Well, they're thinking, as they're isolating, about defending themselves, right? Because all these people are coming at them, right? They feel guilty. And so they feel like they need to defend themselves, and they're trying to stabilize their mind, right? That's what the Four of Swords gets us. And maybe they're trying to rest in some way, withdraw, with the idea that it's so that you can go on and do something else, maybe have a kind of breakthrough. That's what we would expect with the Five of Swords after the Four, a kind of breakthrough. We don't see it here, but we can expect, if conditions agree with it, that we would get a Five of Swords eventually after a Four. What are they doing? Not thinking, but what are they doing here? This is in the middle. They've got this sense of burnout that's not going away, right? 10 goes to 3. And so they thought that it was over, but it's not over. And so they're looking at their options. That's what the Seven of Cups would tell us. But they may not be looking at their options realistically, right? They may not be, they might be dreaming about things that aren't there. They might be having fantasies, right, about what could be or what could have been had they acted differently, or if they made this choice now, could they get you back, and could something else happen? That kind of thing is probably a lot of what they're doing. They're engaging in that kind of thought. And then down here on the bottom, what are they not totally aware of? They're not totally aware of the fact that they're kind of tricky. They're not totally aware of the way in which illusion or fantasy or projection is playing a role in their life. And that is too bad, I think. Because, the magician is really someone who has power. And if they don't know their own power, and seeing this card on the bottom row would indicate that they don't know their own power, that, if I'm being kind and thinking optimistically, I would like to see this person recognize their power and use it for good, right? They're also maybe not totally aware of the way that the spark for you has not died out, right? Seeing this card on the bottom row does indicate it is there. It's still burning. It's smoldering. But maybe they're only unconsciously aware of it. And so they're doing things like fantasizing with the Seven of Cups, but they don't know why, because they think it's all burned out, right? They also don't know why they're having some disruptive conflicts in their interactions with people. And I think it's probably because they're not totally aware of their magician qualities back here, and because they don't know the way that they are maybe not being 100% truthful and straightforward and real with people, that's causing conflicts in their lives, and like they don't get it. They think they don't see the role that they are playing in causing that to happen, right? So there's a lot of potential here, I think, but this person will need to make some changes. And I worry that there's a little bit too much waiting and withdrawing and resting because of defensiveness. That's just conflict. As I said at the top of the reading, it's almost all swords and wands, which is pretty uncomfortable, frankly. Someone in this situation would probably be, not grounded and fulfilled and happy, but on edge and anxious and working and trying to figure out how to build things up so that they're better than they were before, right? All right, let's talk about you for a second. We've talked about your ex enough. Let's take a card from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle. This is your focus message, what you should think about, consider, maybe act on or not act on, depending on what card we get here. This is the card for you after you finish the reading for you to do for yourself. Oh, I got this card the other day. You get to control so many atoms. This is about being grounded, being in your body, recognizing what a miracle it is that you are alive and that you get to do things in the world. It's really remarkable that you get to control so many atoms, and you need to remember that today. That's your focus message. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the reading. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to help grow the channel, and I will leave you with that. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hello, Group 3, and welcome to your reading. You chose the Ocean Jasper here, and we've paired it with 3 cards from the Citadel Oracle to describe your ex. They see themselves, to some extent, as someone who's kind of stingy, right? The miser, maybe they understand that they're inflexible, kind of stubborn from time to time, and they get that about themselves. But what they don't get is that they don't have a path. in life. They have some really difficult decisions to make. They lack direction. They don't know where they're going, and they don't know that they don't know where they're going. Others see them as someone very creative, magician or other creative kind of type, who can draw upon their own inspiration and who's grateful for their ability to use their creativity. So that's your X. We've got the Trinity Tarot here that I have shuffled, but let me give it a little more of a shuffle. And we're going to lay out 9 cards to answer the question, what is going on with your X? We'll put those 9 cards in a box spread and read them. We'll start with the center card, then we'll read the corners, then the columns, and then the rows. Once we've read the whole spread, we'll pull a card for you as a focus message of the day from the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle, and that will be the reading. So let's start with the cards for the spread for your X. We'll take 9 of these. Okay, what do we have? Justice. Taking responsibility for oneself, finding balance in life. Karma, what goes around comes around. Might take a while, but you get back what you've given out. 9 of Cups, well, that's about satisfaction, happiness, attaining what you want. Oh, the Star. This can be about optimism and hope. It can also represent doing unnecessary tasks, pouring water into the water. There's no reason to do that other than, I suppose, maybe symbolic ones. But like if you've taken water out of a pond, why are you pouring the water back in the pond? Irrigating the land over here makes sense if you're trying to get something to grow. But if with your other hand you're pouring water back where you've taken it from, it seems like you maybe have wasted your time a little bit. That would be one reading of the Star. 2 of Swords, putting up boundaries, arguing, making an impossible decision. At the center of the reading, we have the Apprentice of Swords. This would be the Page of Swords and other decks. This is someone who doesn't have enough information, who's trying to gather more information, and who can sometimes overreact, bite off more than they can chew, so to speak, who thinks knowledge is very important, but can become obsessive about gathering enough information. This would be the kind of person who would like stalk you on social media, for example, right? Because they want to know what you are doing. Strength. Having inner strength, sometimes having physical strength, taking a risk, figuring out how to be authentically yourself in front of other people. The Devil, lying, manipulation, being stuck to someone or something, being overly materialistic, being interested only in the sensual life instead of feelings and emotions and ideas and conversations. 6 Wands. This can be other people following you. This can be some kind of victory. This can be a harmony of action. And 4 Wands. Stability, celebration. A stalemate is the other reading of this. Not being able to move forward because things have stuck so firmly in the ground, so to speak. All right, so obviously we've got the center card, Page of Swords, Apprentice of Swords. This represents your ex because the reading is about them and it's the only court card and they're right here in the middle. So this clearly is them. Let's talk about them a little bit more. It's almost certain seeing this card here that this is someone who is trying to figure out as much as they possibly can about you, right? They thrive on gathering information. And so they're looking through wherever they can get that information. This isn't just someone who's fantasizing and thinking about you, but who is like probably actively trying to get more knowledge, more information, more data about what is going on with you. It's possible they're a student. They kind of fit the archetype of a student, whether they are a student or not. They're someone who can be kind of immature because they're an apprentice or a page. They're not established. They're not well tested. They're not secure in themselves yet because they haven't achieved a whole lot yet, although they have potential. Maybe they will someday. But that's the kind of person that I would think about here with the Page of Swords. There's someone who likes to have discussions, likes to argue even hypothetical situations, theoretical possibilities. They want to argue about those often. They can be very calm on the outside, but inside their mind can really be racing and can get the better of them. This is someone who can be very hesitant to act or who can act too quickly, right? Both of those possibilities exist. It's they're always too early or too late would be a way of putting it here with the Apprentice of Swords. Let's read the corners now, and the corners will tell us about a theme or more context for the reading as a whole. And so we'll start with the top left with Justice. And so we've got another sword there, right? Apprentice of Swords has a sword, and then we've got a sword with Justice, even though Justice doesn't come from the suit of swords. But we're thinking here about finding balance, meaning whatever your ex did in the past, they have to take responsibility for it. There's a consequence that comes from every action that everybody takes, and they have to live with that consequence, whatever it is. And so, that's where the balance is. You do one thing, something else comes along to balance that out. So whatever they did, the context here or the theme here is paying for it or being responsible for it or gaining from it if it's something good that they did. Although with the Devil card down here, I suspect that's not what happened. With the Star, we would think of someone who is optimistic and maybe optimistic to a fault, Some people see a light at the end of the tunnel, even when that light at the end of the tunnel might look like a star from a distance, but it turns out that it's an oncoming train about to roll over them. And that might be what we've got here, is someone who's like, it's going to be great. Every day is better than the one before it. And I'm moving forward and I'm going up, but they don't see the train that is coming towards them. I also think of the symmetry, the sort of visual rhyme we're getting between the balance of the scales of justice and the balance of the two vessels of water, that there's a sense here of like pouring one's self out, maybe to atone for whatever they've done in the past, but maybe doing it in a way that isn't consistent and won't actually do the atonement. And I think that, again, because I'm going back to this idea of pouring water back into the pond, it's unnecessary. It's not actually irrigating the land. It's not actually accomplishing anything. So here I could imagine someone who's like being really nice to other people they didn't hurt because they hurt someone, but aren't willing to apologize directly to that person. And so they're trying to make up for it by like, well, I'll give to this charity, or I'll buy someone a coffee, or I'll be really nice to somebody else, even though like what they need to do is go apologize to the person who they played the devil with, right? That's the idea that I get there. If we move down to the Four of Wands, we can think of someone who is maybe looking for something to celebrate, if there is indeed some like achievement coming up for them. Uh, but we can also think of this card as a stalemate of like reaching a certain moment in life where, are things okay? Well, they're stable, right? I've got my Four Wands up and I can build a canopy over myself with that to sort of protect myself. But I can't go forward, right? Being at a stalemate is like there's nowhere else to go. And so is it stable? It's standing, but is it great? No, it's not where you would want it to be, right? So that's the other idea that I would get from Four of Wands, which brings us, of course, to the Devil in the lower left-hand corner. The Devil is about bad contracts, lying, misleading things, being stuck, being chained to something, and trying to find a way to get free. The Devil can be about spending all your time going out to have fun, staying up late, drinking too much, eating too much, being with people you maybe shouldn't be around, because it distracts you from what you really ought to be doing in your life. Like maybe apologizing. I'm thinking, to go back to what I said earlier with the Star and Justice. And so, I would think here we have a situation reading these corner cards of someone who your ex wronged you, I think, in some way, and needs to take responsibility for it, but isn't doing that in the right way. They're masking it with optimism and behaviors that don't actually address the problem, which is putting them in a stable position for now, right? Like they are able to rationalize, um, going back to, using their mind, right? Apprentice of Swords, they're able to rationalize that what they're doing is the right thing to do, but it doesn't really make up for the devilishness that they engaged in with you at some point in the past. So I don't know that their devilishness has changed, or that they're really taking responsibility for what they have done. Let's go now to reading the columns. The left is the past, the middle is the present, the right is the future. And so in the past, we've got an argument, right? An argument, maybe a difficult decision, maybe putting up boundaries. All of that is possible with this. And so I suspect the argument has to do, right? The Justice and the Devil tell us why. Two of Swords tells us what. So what happened in an argument? Why did it happen? Because of the Devil. Whatever they did to manipulate or lie or throw a chain around you or themselves or whatever it was, right? It can be addiction too with the Devil. It can be sensuality. But whatever it was, there's a sense that they need to take responsibility for it, face and suffer the consequences of their actions because it led to a fight between the two of you, which I imagine this is the breakup, right? I'm guessing that that's what it is, them being chained to something else and that leading to a fight and then setting up this condition where there's consequences and a need to take responsibility, right? In the present, what's happening? Well, I think that they think everything's going to be okay. Because Nine of Cups up here is about feeling momentarily very satisfied with oneself, but alone, right? With the Nine of Cups, you got all these cups, but you're by yourself. In other versions of this card, they almost always have just a single figure sitting in a chair with their arms folded across their chest, looking very smug and happy with themselves, self satisfied, right? But you always wonder, like, do you need 9 cups? And I mean, if you do, don't you want to share them with your friends or family or loved ones? Why are you alone with all them cups, right? It's that kind of thing. And so, especially with this card appearing in the top row, we'll read the rows in a moment. It's like this is what's in their mind. It's not necessarily what's really happening. And so I think they're very self satisfied, but I don't think that's probably going to last for too long. We already talked a fair amount about the Apprentice of Swords. I think that what might be happening is they find themselves constantly thinking about you and trying to get information about you, and that's going to lead them to realize that they're not as satisfied and smug as they think that they are. With the Six of Wands down here, we get this idea of going forth and doing something where you're publicly recognized for it. And so I can't help but think of social media um because of the public part of this. Like, I almost can imagine a situation where your ex is like getting ready to like a post something where they're apologizing to you, or post something where it seems like they're giving back to someone that makes them look like a nice person. But I think they're doing it for devilish reasons, right? Like, they want to look good publicly, even though behind the scenes they're kind of someone else altogether, right? Like, they want other people to follow them. Six of Wands can mean a group of people following someone else. And so they want other people to follow them and look favorably at them. And I think, again, that has to do with guilt over needing to take responsibility for their actions. But I don't know that this is necessarily actually taking that responsibility. So the theme that like just keeps coming up here is that your ex is finding ways to make it seem like they're taking responsibility for their actions without actually taking responsibility for their actions. That I'm getting in a couple of different ways here. It's resonating. What do we have coming up in the future? Endless optimism that everything's going to turn out okay with the star, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not an onrushing train. But then a lion's mouth coming right at them. So this could go either way. You know, with the Lion of Strength, we could be looking at a situation where in the best possible reading, they do actually really seriously truly take responsibility for what a devil they have been in the past. They take that person they are on the inside and they show it outwardly, publicly to everyone, and find a way to grow from it. That is the best case scenario here. But rather than sort of letting the beast out, so to speak, for others to view, and then of course judge as well, and account for, we might have a situation where they're using their inner strength to just keep hiding who they really are, right? And so that is open right now. That is not determined. We don't know what your ex is going to do, right? They have free will, just like we all do, to some extent. So we don't know what they're going to do, but there is a potential here. There is a possibility here that they will use their strength in the right way, right? And if that were to happen, I think that their optimism could be well founded and there could really be something to celebrate, right? Like if they were to take responsibility for what they did, maybe apologize publicly in a real way, um, then maybe we could see a reason to celebrate. Otherwise, I think I wouldn't read this as celebration. I'd read it again as stalemate. They're stuck, right? The 4 is about being stable, not being able to make any change, move forward, or progress. So let's look at the rows. The top row, this is what they think. The middle is what's staring them in the face, what they're doing. And the bottom is what they don't see, what's the foundation of the situation. So what are they thinking? They know they need to take responsibility. They know that that's what they should be doing, right? And they're maybe feeling very self-satisfied because they think they got away with something. That's what I would see here, right? And they're thinking, nobody can get me, right? I've got everything I want. I'm totally happy. There's nothing wrong. Everything's good to go, right? And everything's optimistic, and it's going to be great in the future, and nobody's going to catch me. And even though back here I did something I need to account for, I got away with it, right? That's what they're thinking, okay? But what are they doing? They're putting up boundaries because they know if people get too close, they'll see what they're really doing and who they really are, right? They're thinking about this argument. They're thinking about the breakup, right? They're trying to gather more information about you. They're trying to see if you're happy. They're trying to see if you're doing okay. If you're single, like what's going on with you. And they're figuring out what to do about their strength. They're trying to decide, I think, if they should use their strength for good, to do the right thing and really make sure justice is served, or if they're going to keep using their strength for bad, to hide what's really going on, right? They don't necessarily know about their own devilishness, right? Because this card appears in the bottom row, this is what's causing the situation, what's at the foundation of everything, but also what they are unaware of. So it would be very hard, I think, to convince a devil, metaphorically I'm speaking here, right? Convince someone who's devilish, who acts devilishly, that they were a devil if that was invisible to them, right? They're more like acting like a lion. They don't know that they've got horns. Does that make sense? They do, but they don't see it. And that is causing problems left and right, I think, for them. They don't know, I think, perhaps how much they want to be publicly recognized and approved of, right? How much they want a win, a victory, and they don't know how much they're actually at a standstill. That is not, they think they're going forward. Every day's better than the one before, but actually they're here with 4 wands that don't grow, that don't move, right? That just sort of are stagnant, right? All right. I hope that this person can learn to acknowledge their devilishness, take off their horns, and be a strong lion instead of this number 15 that they have been in and don't know that they are being. Let's grab a focus card for you now. We'll take the Rainbow Brainskull Oracle, give it a shuffle, and pull just one card. And this is what you should be focusing on, thinking about where you should be directing your energies as soon as the reading ends, right? All right, your focus message is never leave it blank. Make something stupid, throw in vaults. I love this. Whatever, whether this is like posting on social media or if you have a journal, I think now is a time. Never leave it blank to go write in your journal. Make it stupid. Don't feel like you can't write what you're thinking or feeling because it's stupid. Do it anyways, and then throw it in the vault. So maybe that means don't publish it on social media. Maybe this is just for you, right? Maybe this is go draw or write or make music if you do music, whatever it is, but just do it for yourself, right? Not everything needs to be so that you can publish it and share it and get public acclaim for it, right? It's maybe now's a time to make something stupid just for you, right? I think that sounds like a great idea. I think I might try that myself today. Be a little stupid just for me. All right. Have a great one, everybody. Be well. If you enjoyed this, consider liking and subscribing. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the reading, and I will see you next time. Bye.